You're watching KRQE News 13 on Fox, New Mexico.
Today is the International Day of Human Spaceflight, and here in New Mexico, we have a long legacy of connections with space exploration and encounters even. Now telling us more about the day and our state's connection with space, we're joined by our favorite celebrity historian, our good friend, Raffi Andonian. Raffi, always good to have you with us, buddy.
And you know, I think of the moon, you know, when you think of space flight, the famous moon landing, and it was in that year that David Bowie, in 1969, came out with the song, you know, Ground Control to Major Tom. And my favorite part for today is, this is Major Tom to ground control, I'm walking through the door, right? And I love that part because that is exactly the moment we're talking about, the International Day of Space Flight. I love that.
Yeah, we love it, and we love our connection to it because, you know, from even events like the Space Shuttle Columbia touching down in White Sands, you know, in the 80s, to even just, you know, the research that has been done for making spaceflight possible.
And White Sands also contributed to the moon, to the Apollo missions, to the moon. So there was also testing that was done there as well. So the moment we just talked about was also contributed to by New Mexico. And before that, in the 1930s, you had rocket tests being done by Robert Goddard over there. And that actually, he was pretty influential because if you go to Maryland today, there's a Goddard Space Flight Center that's named after him. And those tests were done right here in New Mexico. And how can we forget, of course, the spaceport, the first commercial flight for space happened right here in New Mexico, right? Started from here. And I think today, when we're talking about the International Day for Human Spaceflight, is very much fitting. And you can go back centuries, of course, going back to Chaco Canyon. We have evidence of observatories there and in the importance of the cosmos and the space there. Now, of course, they were not flying to space, but there was this connection and early, you know, observations, if you will. And since we're talking New Mexico, how can we forget about the UFO stories in Roswell?
It's back.
Oh, yes, it is.
It is back. Yeah, Raffi's been waiting to bust this one out
I have been waiting.
since the last time you wore
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
One of my favorites. One of my favorite outfits. Come on now. Celebrity alien, not just a celebrity historian.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And, yeah, our connection to that down with our friends in Roswell, what they were encountering way back when.
But the International Day for Human Spaceflight was actually, it's a serious thing. It actually was established by the United Nations in 2011 on the 50th anniversary of the first human spaceflight, which happened in 1961 by a Soviet. Now, this is a big moment for space because what happened is that really freaked us out in the United States. You're talking about in the Cold War context. So John F. Kennedy, very shortly after that, on this day, because the first Soviet flight was on this day in April, he, the next month in May, promised to put a man on the moon, back to that moment, by the end of the decade. And there was a series of things that had happened in the prior few years. You had Sputnik, the first man-made satellite, right, in space. Russia, You had the dog Laika, who was put into space to show that living things can actually survive in space. This was also Soviet. And then now you have the first man in space, Soviet, in 1961, the first human space flight. So in the context of the Cold War, the United States feels like we're losing here in the space race. So this is a key moment for the space race, and the United Nations established a committee which later became the Office of Outer Space Affairs, which exists to this day, which is who created this day in 2011. And this office actually does a lot of cool things. You can go check it out online. It's UNOOSA.org, United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs.org. And what's really fascinating about it is they do things like watch out for near-Earth objects, like things that can hit the Earth and hurt us. They watch out for space debris, international space law, tracking space satellites and all the stuff that's out there to make sure every country is accountable to what they're putting into space. And they do workshops and training, so they're actually doing a lot of stuff. So when they have this day to recognize it's not just ceremonial, but there's actually substance behind what they're doing, and it's been there for decades.
That's right, and the future in the sky's the limit.
That's right.
So, yeah, it's only going up from here. All right, Raffi, thank you so much for joining us and bringing us some valuable information on this important day.